I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. At a press conference on Thursday, Senator Ed Markey reacted to the Supreme Court decision in West Virginia versus EPA. The Supreme Court curbed the EPA's power to regulate emissions and fight climate change. The Massachusetts senator said the decision was, quote, made by a far-right, stolen, illegitimate Supreme Court. Listen in for his remarks.
Deniable threat to our nation's health, our climate, and our government's ability to protect the public. The West Virginia versus EPA decision, which slashed the EPA's longstanding, life-saving ability to regulate greenhouse gases from fossil fuels, was made by a far-right, stolen, illegitimate Supreme Court. Decades of precedent about how we protect public health and limit air pollution have been upended and undermined by partisan judges in one single decision. Through years of lawmaking and regulatory rulemaking, Congress has given the government the authority to set standards to keep Americans safe from dirty air and from climate change. 6 unelected judges should never be able to take away that authority and to put our health, our climate, and our livable future at risk. They should never have the power to tell frontline communities that they are going to be left unprotected and left to die from climate disasters here in the United States and across the planet. We have a 4-alarm climate fire. This decision takes away the EPA's fire hose and gives it a leaky bucket instead. It puts devastating limits on our administrative authority to keep people safe and to address climate pollution. From the decision to roll back gun safety laws to last week's attack on the constitutional right to an abortion, we have seen outrage after outrage from this far-right court, and they're only just beginning. What other judicial attacks must we endure from this illegitimate Supreme Court majority before we act to expand the Supreme Court to bring balance to the bench and restore its legitimacy? Through Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump, the Republicans stole 2 Supreme Court seats. That is the basis for their ability on the court now to engage in this radical undermining of set law precedent that has been on the books to protect the American people for a generation. So we have to fight as a result even harder to pass the life-changing funding for climate justice and clean energy through Congress this session. National climate action cannot rest on the bad faith, oil-soaked decisions of this Supreme Court majority. Climate action cannot wait. I'm going to continue to push for ambitious climate funding, executive climate action, and legislation to fix a broken Supreme Court by expanding it so we can have the balance that historically has characterized the courts. This decision makes our efforts here in the regional electricity market even more important. Our states and regional authorities must become the engines of our clean energy revolution. We will fight in Congress and in the executive branch to do what we can and to not back down, but no one, not ISO New England, not our state governments, not our city councils, no one can now sit out this crisis and wait for the climate chaos to arrive. We must now step up and show what is possible as a clean energy revolution for our entire country. The Supreme Court will not and cannot be the last word on climate action. Nothing less than the fate of future generations. And this planet demands our full commitment here in Massachusetts and in New England. We must respond and respond urgently to this crisis. The events of this past week have proven that the January 6th Trump political coup failed, but his judicial coup has succeeded. And those 6 Supreme Court justices are now in the process of systematically undermining law by law, which has been on the books for a generation to protect the American people. And we have to ensure that we respond by expanding the Supreme Court so that it's not just abortion and not just climate, but it's every other issue that is now going to be on the agenda of this right-wing Supreme Court to repeal is, in fact, countered by an action that guarantees that the votes will not be there for them to accomplish that goal. So let me stop and answer any questions that you may have. Excuse me? Yeah. They ruled that the Clean Power Plan that had been constructed to limit the greenhouse gases going up from the smokestacks of utilities in the United States cannot be regulated by the Environmental Protection Agency. And that is going to be a devastating, long-term, and crippling limitation on what the EPA can do to limit greenhouse gases going up into the atmosphere in our country. We're still working very hard to have a reconciliation bill. Of course, it would be great if in that final package, and that's what I'm working towards, that we had the tax breaks for wind and solar and all electric vehicles and battery storage technologies, transmission technologies, but also the tax breaks for domestic manufacturing of solar and offshore wind component parts here in the United States of America. I'm still hopeful that we can finish that package. We're working very closely with all senators on the Democratic side to accomplish that goal. Of course, we'll have no Republican votes for that agenda because their alignment is with this majority of the Supreme Court in not providing the resources to accomplish those important goals. We have to repeal the filibuster so that we can expand the Supreme Court and add the additional justices that make up for what Trump and McConnell did in stealing 2 Supreme Court justices. We have to repeal the filibuster, expand the Supreme Court. Otherwise, what just happened on guns and abortion and climate are a preview of coming attractions of this Supreme Court in terms of all of the rules, all of the protections which they are going to take off of the books as protections for the health and safety of the American people. We have safeguards here in Massachusetts on guns and on abortion protections, but we cannot protect ourselves from climate consequences unless we have national laws, unless we have all parts of America which are under regulation to ensure that there's a dramatic reduction in greenhouse gases. So today it's a devastating a blow because Massachusetts cannot protect itself alone. We can do everything we can lead the nation, but we need all states to be working together in order to be the leader nationally so that we can then lead the rest of the world. So it is a devastating a decision in terms of U.S. leadership at a time when the rest of the world is waiting to see if we're going to act. You cannot preach temperance from a bar stool. We cannot tell the rest of the world to do something because the danger is so great if the United States is not going to do something themselves. And today the United States was put on the sidelines in the climate fight by the Supreme Court of the United States. Well, Senator Blumenthal and I have written to the 10 largest airlines. The 4th of July should be a period of celebration, not consternation, for the traveling public. And we're calling on the airlines to make sure that they fulfill their commitment to the flying public over this weekend. It is absolutely inexcusable that the airlines are not ready for this weekend, which always has a high percentage of the American people flying. It is something that absolutely is unacceptable, and so we have to fight them as hard as we can, which is what I'm going to be doing. Senator Blumenthal and I are leading the effort in the Senate, and these airlines right now are acting irresponsibly, from my perspective. There should be a guarantee that any cancellation allows for the passenger to be able to use their coupon or their ticket any time they want, forever. There should never be an expiration date on a ticket that was canceled by the airlines because too many people are going to miss the very events that they were planning on traveling to. Okay, thank you all so much. Thanks for being here.